Hello friends, welcome to ePathshala. I'm Amrit Negi. I'm teaching at Institute of Social Science Education and Research, Punjab University, Chandigarh. The module we are going to discuss today is Legacies of Indian Nationalist Movement. This module is a part of paper number 2, Indian Politics. The module is structured around the main currents of forming nationalist movement in India by drawing socio-economic and political ideas which we in today's India owe to the nationalist movement. Nationalist movement in India was not only a long-drawn battle fought against British imperialism to get freedom, but it also contributed to socio-economic political ideas which laid the foundation of nation in making. Nationalist movement is a significant political movement involving people from almost all the various sections of society with the purpose of achieving certain collectively cherished vital national goals in a country. Such movements are often to be seen in the histories of various countries at times when these are faced with some pivotal socio-economic or political issues involving the very basic character of their societies to sometimes even their socio-economic political existence itself. During such tough times, a process of national consciousness begins, generally with a lead provided by some enlightened or motivated elites, and over a period of time the common people, sharing the ideas and goals, begin to be drawn behind these elite, and ultimately the nationalist movement set in and begin to grow. The stimulus to the beginning and the evolution of Indian nationalist movement is mainly to be traced in the long series of varied social, political and economic factors which began to unfold in the aftermath of East India Company's victory in the Battle of Plassey 1757, leading to the steady establishment of their political and economic dominance over the whole of the India. The economic, administrative and revenue system introduced by East India Company rulers were broadly exploitative. The general disruptive impact of these systematic changes affect not only the lower strata of the society comprising of peasant, workers, artisans and tradesmen, but also the upper classes like elite or the traditionally dominating segment of the Indian society, which included landlords and local rulers. Side by side, the indifferent, indiscriminated and disdained treatment of Indians by the East India Company establishment and the abrupt disruption of their traditional religious and cultural beliefs also bred stream of discontent. Thus, this long drawn process produced discontent, resentment and resistance at every stage and in almost every section of Indian society. This piling up discontent ultimately precipitated into a series of scattered civil protests, agrarian uprising, tribal uprising and the local rebellion in various parts of India. This collective discontent then ultimately snowballed into the historic event of 1857, popularly known as the First War of Independence in our country. 1857 definitely is a watershed year in the evolution and consolidation of the nationalist consciousness, which ultimately resulted in the taking of the nationalist movement of India in the last quarter of 19th century. The founding of Congress Party in 1885 became a turning point in the evolution of nationalist movement in India. Beginning as a small organization of educated and urban Indians, the Indian National Congress ultimately evolved as a massive umbrella organization of all sections of the Indian people. Its very first agenda in 1886 was the demand for adequate representation of the Indians in the senior government services and the legislative bodies created by Indian Council Act of 1861. But by 1930 it was asking for Purna Swaraj, that is complete independence, which then came in 1947. The Indian nationalist movement of course had various streams in it, which include Ghadar movement, local revolutionary, passive resistance, and of course the Gandhian Satyagraha, and last but not the least the military nationalism of Subhash Chandra Bose. But Mahatma Gandhi led Congress party emerged more like the mainstream movement of the nationalist struggle of India. Thus, the nationalist movement of India, though dominated by Gandhian Congress, was in fact a multifaceted and an extremely wide movement with a common aim in which diverse political and ideological currents could coexist and work. It was a popular movement led by powerful mass leader who focused on not only on the political liberation from colonial ruler but also upon various other socio-political and economic aspects of our national life. In terms of legacies of the Indian nationalist movement, this can broadly understood as political, economic and social legacies. Political legacies, when we discuss about the political legacies of the Indian national movement, these are wide ranging and are reflected not only in our constitution and government policies but are also in our political culture and the working of the Indian polity. The same can be studied as under democratic polity is the main agenda and product of political legacy. Indian freedom movement may have started as a small select group political activity of the educated influential urban Indians, but soon it evolved into an all-encompassing mass movement, especially after Mahatma Gandhi emerged on the political scenario around 1918-19. Mahatma Gandhi was a firm believer in a broad-based political movement aimed at the achieving of self-rule on the basis of an ethical struggle carried on the principles like Satyagraha and non-violence against the British colonial government, as well as carrying out much needed social reform in the Indian society. The idea was to have a democratic national movement rooted in a plural society capable of honoring civic and egalitarian values and able to sustain constructive Indian nationalism. The organization and working of the Congress party itself was largely democratically structured, wherein, despite the decisive role of towering leadership, sufficient mechanism for obtaining opinion of various delegates and people exist. The pre-independence Congress party was not a typical political party in the narrow sense of the term. Rather, it was an umbrella organization which accommodated and carried along with it people and small groups having varying ideology and approaches but having a common target. Thus, the parliamentary system, universal adult franchise, fundamental rights including freedom of expression, independent media and other civil liberties, as well as minority rights as given in the Constitution of India and available to citizens even after 63 years of its promulgation, are a direct reflection of the political values passed on by the leadership of the national movement. The strong commitment to democracy on the part of national movement leaders become all the more visible in the fundamental rights and directive principle of state policies, wherein futuristic guidelines to further nurture and strengthen the social base of democracy in India were elaborately mentioned as part of the Constitution. Indian federalism as part of Indian political legacy is though largely structured on the lines of the Government of India Act 1935, but its spirit and working largely conforms to the collective legacies of the nationalist movement. The apex national leadership visualized an independent India as a strong and unified state, so as not only to redeem its unique place in the community of nations. At the same time, the regional aspiration and developmental agendas were to be accommodated. The entire Nehruvian legacy is an epitome of such a futuristic vision of an independent India. This came naturally to the responsible leadership of a people in geographically large country having several multiple diversities. Indian federal structure no doubt create a hegemonic center, but this hegemon is to be a benevolent hegemon which while preserving the unity and integrity of the country, has to suitably facilitate the process of nation building through planned economic development while ensuring appropriate local spaces for diverse linguistic, cultural, and other regional diversity which constitute India. In terms of secular state as national movement, legacy is a significant feature of India's freedom struggle right from the beginning. Even prior to the movement, the first war of independence in 1857 also exhibits strong secular overtone when people in several parts of India stood above all communal affiliation and waged a collective Indian war against the British rule. This trend continued later on. No doubt communal approach, issues and problems continued to pop up during these times, but as is evident, they were not much able to dilate the secular spirit of national movement. The last few years of run up to the independence of India were particularly trying and testing time, and the violent communalism faced by Jinnah's Muslim League was an ever strong provocation and challenge to the mainstream secularism. However, despite the fact that India got partition on communal lines, the Congress dominated national movement never wavered in its commitment to secularism. A resolution passed in the Karachi session of the Indian National Congress in 1931 clearly stated that in independent India every citizen shall enjoy freedom of conscience and the right freely to profess and practice his or her religion, that all citizens would be equal before law, and that the state shall observe neutrality in regard to all religion. There was no change in this approach ever afterwards. Indeed, secularism also was to be one of the bases of Indian nationalism, whereby the loyalty of the individual citizen was expected to be with the state clearly over and above their community. No doubt there have been intermittent spots of communal tensions and violence and related issues, but nonetheless the characteristic of accommodative coexistence has been all the more dominating. The principal leadership of nationalist movement was personally all the more committed to the values of secularism. Mahatma Gandhi, though himself a deeply religious person, held the view religion is a personal matter which should have no place in politics. Jawaharlal Nehru viewed communalism as an Indian brand of fascism and was opposed to it with a strong conviction. So were all other leaders of the Congress as well as leaders of the revolutionary streams which continued side by side with the mainstream non-violent nationalist movement. Under such an impact, the independent India adopted secularism as the guiding philosophy of state in preamble. India's secularism need to be understood in the broader connotation of the term secular, whereas Indian secularism does subscribe to the core idea of the concept of secularism as it is understood in the West, that state and the religion will be separated and apart. It goes beyond that in the sense that state will treat all religions equally. Religion has been and continues to be a very significant part of the individual and social life in India, so it can't simply be washed away. Therefore, the Constitution of India recognized religious minorities, their exclusive cultural and educational rights, and the need to assure maintenance of the rights through impartial state support. All this was made part of the most significant part of Indian Constitution, namely fundamental rights. Furthermore, the futuristic emphasis upon the secularization of Indian society very well gets reflected in the directive principle of state policy, especially the Article 38 and 44. Also within the Indian society, despite occasional communal rumbling and provocations, the culture of religious tolerance and accommodative coexistence firmly continues. Foreign policy as legacy. The nationalist movement also very importantly influenced the formation of world view of an independent India. A prolonged struggle against imperialism, communalism, and economic exploitation was definitely to reflect in the foreign policy of independent India. Indian leadership keenly watched the developments in Europe, especially the rise of fascism and Nazism and the unfolding of events leading to the Second World War and its course. India's policy of non alignment is deeply embedded in those experiences. The leadership was also clear about the fact that India shall have to take the leadership role in rallying the maximum number of poor countries in order to struggle for a world order which is more conducive to the problem and requirement of the exploited, poor, and developing countries of the New World. The beginning was, of course, made with the Asia Relations Conference of 1946 held in New Delhi. Thus, a foreign policy was followed which dealt with the strong countries of the world on the basis of conjoined approach of national interest and world peace. There has been a special place for the developing countries based on the concept of shared development and cooperation and peaceful settlement of disputes. International forums like the UN always had a special place in India's foreign policy as India looks forward to a world order based on international law, equality, and coexistence. Developments like Look East policy, Gujarat Doctrine, all this remind of especially Nehruvian rhetoric about India's special concern for the Afro-Asian countries. These developments re-emphasize the spirit of Asian Relations Conference 1946 New Delhi, Bandung Conference 1955, etc. Economic legacies. Indian nationalist movement as it encountered the British colonialism had strong economic component as well. It had to be because at the core of British colonialism was the economic exploitation of Indian economy in order to make it subservient to the British economic interest. It was broadly felt that India's social and economic progress had been retarded by centuries of British rule and the country had been kept agrarian and its industrial potential has remained arrested. In fact, the major cause of the plethora of tribal and uprising during the mid 19th century and later on was indeed the economic exploitation and squeezing of the natives at the hand of the British or the local feudal lords who were the intermediary between the company and the native peasant, artisan, and other such people. Dadabhai Naoroji's economic critique of colonialism, Drain Theory, as given in his book Poverty and Un-British Rule in India, very appropriately sum up the Indian concern about their all-round economic exploitation at the hand of British. Apart from Naoroji, Mahadev Govind Ranade and D.C. Dutt may be taken to be the pioneering of India's economic thinking in the British India. Mahatma Gandhi's political thinking was also dominated with his concern about the acute poverty in India, especially in rural India. In the Karachi session of Indian National Congress in 1931, a resolution drafted by Jawaharlal Nehru and moved by Mahatma Gandhi became the guiding document of economic thinking of independent India. It said that in independent India, the state shall own or control key industries and services, mineral services, railways, waterways, and shipping and other means of transport. The impact of such economic thinking by elites of India's nationalist movement is quite visible upon independent India's economic policies. The 5-year plan system became the mainstay of India's economic restructuring and revival. Agriculture being the mainstay of the Indian economy, agrarian reform was always high on the agenda of Indian nationalists who strongly emphasized upon the need for restructuring agrarian relations and the ending of all intermediary rent receivers like zamindars or landlords. Similarly, revival of the indigenous industry and economic self-reliance was always high on Nehru's development agenda for independent India. Jawaharlal Nehru was convinced that the economic self-sufficiency of independent India cannot be achieved without modern industrialization and infrastructure building. Therefore, apart from the heavy industry, the medium, small and handicrafts were also addressed to, as these would be the major source of domestic consumer production as well as employment. Thus, interlinkages between industry and agriculture was considered to be important for countering the rural poverty. State played the most significant role in this regard. Impact of Gandhian economic thinking, which begins with his famous treatise Hind Swaraj, can still be observed, albeit on the margins of contemporary Indian economy. The role of cooperative movements and the support of handicraft through Khadi Gram Udyog Board is noteworthy and has definitely contributed to the betterment of our rural economy in various parts of the country. Socialism. Socialism as a legacy of Indian nationalist movement. The 1917 Socialism as a legacy of Indian nationalist movement. Jawaharlal Nehru particularly developed a special interest in socialism to the extent that during his presidential address to the 1928 annual session of the Indian National Congress, he remarked that the only solution of the world's problem and India's problem lies in socialism. The entire Gandhian approach runs a close parallel to socialism and is rather called as Gandhian socialism. Nationalism was thus conceived as a combination of political freedom and social emancipation. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, architect of the Indian Constitution, was more forthcoming in this regard. He observed in 1949, "We must make our political democracy a social democracy as well. Political democracy cannot last unless there lies at the base of its social democracy." What does social democracy mean? It means a way of life which recognizes liberty, equality and fraternity as the principle of life. On the 26th January 1950, we are going to enter into a life of contradictions. In the politics, we will have equality, and in social and economic life, we will have inequality. Though independent India has not adopted any particular brand of socialism as the policy of state, but nonetheless, socialist idea along with the British liberalism have definitely influenced the making of our constitution. The nationalist leadership was keen to have a system based on liberal values, but at the same time, the desire to usher in rapid social and economic changes was even stronger. To sum up, we may say that although underlying thread was anti-colonialism, nationalist movement had various streams, be it moderate or extremist, but it was a mass movement led by popular mass leaders whose concern was not only to get political liberation from British rule, but they also contributed and addresses various issues like socio-economic, ethnic, regional, which is being faced by various strata of our society and have significant impact on our national outlook even this day.